Afternoon, everyone. Be here for another half hour today. Start at 7 o'clock, finish about 7:30. But just mute it so it doesn't suddenly make noise when alerts come along. The idea, if you've not been to one of these lives before, is I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the time available. Always start off this with a little bit of kind of guidance. When you write your message, your question, please make it as clear as possible. So when I read it, it all makes sense. All the information's there. And also, please do try and limit yourself to just one question because I won't be able to answer more than one. So if I see more than one, I'll just pick the first one of yours that I see. That's it, really. If I don't get around to your questions, look at the top of the group you're watching on YouTube. You'll see some links there. They're going to be really useful for you to maybe find your answer elsewhere. So we have becleveryourcash.com/newsletter. That is my weekly free newsletter. It comes out on a Thursday morning at 7 a.m. That's so you can keep abreast of everything I do on the website, on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, all those kind of things. If you're following that, hopefully your questions are answered before you even know you have to ask them. We have the Facebook group, becleveryourcash.com/community. Join us there, 5,500 people. There is a very, very important pinned announcement you need to read to make sure you understand what you can ask and what you can't ask. But that's a great place to get some help as well. And obviously there's the podcast as well, podfollow.com/cash chats. Right, let's get started. Hello on Instagram as well. But don't worry, I won't forget about you. I will make sure that I check out if you ask me any questions as we go along as well. And hello there from Josh. Actually, hey, we'll start here. It's unusual to do that. From Brad on the Beard. Does being rejected for a current account negatively impact your credit report? So what I will do here is I'll pass you over to today's podcast. Came out this morning. This is Cash Chat. So search for it in your app. Whatever you listen to podcasts, could be Spotify, Apple, whatever it is, or go over to the website and I've got an article on the podcast there. But I talk about bank switching and credit reports. But obviously, as part of that, there's also that process of opening a bank account as well. So do check that one out. That should answer your question there. Right. Gody says, no question from me this week. Hope you're well. Hi, Gody. Good to hear from you. Rico says, could you do a review on Crew Bank? What are your thoughts? It seems a standard bank with high interest. It misses a lot of digital bank features and high street bank features, and you can't deposit cash. Yeah, so when Crew first launched, it was one of the top of the list for me to do a proper review and video, but that's because it was offering like a decent rate of interest. Well, not when it first launched. When it first launched, that interest rate around the turn of the year. But since then, a number of other accounts have been higher than that. So it hasn't been a priority for me because, as you say there, I mean, that's a perfect review there. It doesn't do all the things that all the digital banks can do. It doesn't do all the things that a high street bank can do. It's a perfectly decent digital bank, and you can get 4.1% there on your savings, which is great. But there will be a review at some point, but it's still not a priority because there are better options for banking, in my opinion, and better options for saving right now. Obviously, if you've got one, then knock yourself out and give it a go and see what you think. But I don't think it's got enough features yet to beat Starling at the top of my list for bank accounts and whatever is the top of the list right now. Remember, for savings accounts, becleverwithyourcash.com/savings is where every day I'm updating the list of Best Buy tables. Malaka says, I keep getting phoned by my bank because I move money around to get better rates. Their fraud department's on the ball, but it's a pain to keep saying that mine are genuine transactions. Any ideas? Yeah, I've had exactly the same situation as well. You either go for the process, which is a bit of a pain, and I've had that process. I think I spoke about it on the podcast a few months ago in my month in money roundup. There's also an article on the website. I think this would have been the May or June one, if you want to check that out. But the situation I had was I tried to transfer money from my Starling account because that's my main account. So I moved money from one savings account into Starling to move it out to another account with a higher interest rate. And it got blocked. And this was at a weekend and it remained blocked. And all my transactions were blocked for a weekend, which was a real pain. I've since apologized. It's a kind of a weird thing that very rarely going to happen, but can happen. But anyway, back to your question. All you can do is try and choose savings accounts where they tend to increase rates when others around them increase rates. And even if they're not going to the top of the table, they're there or thereabouts. Again, no guarantee this is going to be the case because there can be times where they don't move them for a while and you're losing out, and then they move them up but they're still lower, or suddenly they jump to the top. But Chip has been for this year a decent bet to be at or near the top of the tables. Family Building Society, they've tended to move their rates up and down, but they also withdraw the account for new applicants sometimes. If you haven't got it, that might be frustrating. Shawbrook, Tandem, mentioned Crew as well. They're kind of there and thereabouts. There are some which you regularly see at the top of the table, and maybe that's the option. Just stick it in there, and even if it is 0.1, 0.2% less than the top one, it's not the end of the world. particularly unless you've got lots and lots of money in there, when you have lower balances, it doesn't make that much of a difference anyway. So that's all you can do really, or go through those checks every time you move your money. AG says, hi Andy, do you think these small banks who offer best rates of interest will eventually go bust like the energy companies? No, it won't be like that. So basically, when these small banks, the reason so many of them are at the top of these tables, unlike the big banks, it's because the bigger banks don't need to do this. They know they've got your customer base. They know you're there. If you aren't going to move your money to someone else, then you're going to sit there with whatever they offer. These newer banks or smaller banks, because some of them have been around for a long time, some of them are building societies which are decades and decades and decades and decades of years old. They're trying to sort of maybe bring in amount of money that they can then use for a building society. They'll use them for funding mortgages. Other banks might be using them for investments for other sort of funds or in development with themselves. They bring that money in, and that's sometimes why they are at high rates for a short period, and then they disappear for new customers. They carry on for existing customers, and they disappear because they've got the money that they need to use. What you've got to remember here is they are all protected, at least the ones that I list, they're all protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. I've got a whole video and article taking you through exactly what that means and how that works, so check that out for more information. But fundamentally, money up to £85,000 in a single financial institution is protected if the bank was to go bust. So I don't think these banks will go bust, but even if they do, you don't have anything to worry about there. Let's go back to Insta, see how you guys are doing over there. Like a Penguin says, are you a financial advisor and do you offer a personal service? No, I am not a financial advisor. That's why I generally don't really talk about regulated things like investing in mortgages and pensions. I could talk about them in broad strokes, the kind of things you'd be doing, but I wouldn't really talk about those products in any way. Financial advisors are useful things to do depending on the situation. So potentially, if you were right now, if you are looking to remortgage, my mortgage broker could be a really good person to chat to because they have a much better sense of what's going on in the market, because it's a really kind of messed up time right now for mortgages. But then for other things, the more traditional financial planners and financial advisors, they're probably more likely going to be if you're approaching retirement and you want to make sure that your money is in the right place and decisions on what you should do with that. Should you buy an annuity? Should you take out some of it tax-free in one lump sum or take it out as you go along? Those kind of questions. Do you want to de-risk some of it as you approach retirement? Or maybe if you've had a bit of a windfall, so maybe you have had an inheritance. Maybe you won the premium bonds, something like that. So you've got a large sum of cash in and they can help advise what to do. A lot of the other stuff you probably don't need a financial advisor for. But again, do your research before you do that. Look at places like Unbiased and Vouched For, and they'll give you a sense of what other people think of their financial advisors, or get word of mouth to see what people think there, if you know friends who have used one, if they like them at all. So this is from Clickerfest, says, do I use my student 0% overdraft or dip into my emergency fund and top up on payday? So really good question here. If you have a 0% overdraft, as the name suggests, it means you won't get charged any interest on that at all. Now, as long as you say you have savings and you have a payday coming along, as long as that money does go back into that overdraft, it's not cost you anything. You are borrowing for free. Okay, so that is a very, very good way to do it. Likewise, someone might have not a student, but they might have a 0% overdraft buffer. That is a much, much better option to do that than a credit card. And obviously, it is better than taking it out of your emergency fund, because at the moment, the savings in your emergency fund are earning interest. Now, you could, depending on the size of your student overdraft right now, you could take it to the next level. You could take, let's say you've got a £500 student overdraft that you don't, 0% overdraft that you don't really use. You could put that £500 in the top paying easy access account. At the moment, that's 4.35 from Shawbrook Bank. Put it in there and earn interest on it. So you're not paying any debt on that 0% overdraft, but you're earning interest on the savings. That would give you a little bit of money. And because it's easy access, then you are able to kind of move that money straight back into the overdraft if you need to, because obviously when that 0% overdraft for the student overdraft does end, and ultimately it'll be tiered, but ultimately when it goes, you don't want to be paying the debt on that. What I would say is obviously don't get too tempted to be very easy just to quickly spend that money. If you see it in a different account and not in the overdraft, you might spend it and not have the money left over to knock it out. But yeah, give that one a go. Sid says, hey Andy, my Amex Preferred Gold 1 year is ending next month. Do you suggest I keep using it or upgrade to another Amex? So I'm going to be doing my credit card update video on YouTube, an article on the website, hopefully this weekend. I've got a query in with the Amex press office that I need to get back before I can do this. But what's really important to know, and I did talk about this in the podcast a few weeks ago, and I said we'll go into more detail soon, is Amex are changing the rules, or have changed the rules, in terms of pro rata refund on the fees on these cards. So the Amex Gold, if you do not cancel it before that charge comes in, and this change doesn't happen until October, so you've got a bit of time, but then you won't be able to get a pro rata refund. You will be paying that full amount. It's 165, 160, off the top of my head, something like that for the gold card that you'll be locked into. And I don't think you should be paying that at all. I absolutely think you do not want to keep that card after the first year. Free in the first year. After that, 160 quid does not give you the right benefits. So what you want to do, if you have any Amex points still on that card, you either need to open up another Amex membership reward card. There's a free Amex, I've got it here somewhere, the free Amex reward card. That will mean as long as they're linked, make sure they're linked. You can do that via live chat. Your points remain active, or spend those points before you cancel the card. But don't just cancel it with points that are live with nowhere for them to go or already moved, because then you'll lose them. And then, I would look at a different Amex after that instead of that. David G says, hi, cancelling my Amex every 2 years, will it negatively impact my credit score? I recently watched one of your videos where you said you and your wife cancelled every 2 years to get the boosted offers. Yeah, so this is the trick that we used to do, and we could still do it. Because you have to not to have had an American Express card in your name in 2 years in order to be eligible for a welcome bonus. For the majority of the cards, there is a video and article about a couple of exceptions, the Platinum card and the British Airways Premium Plus cards, although the rule changes on fee refunds makes them probably less attractive. But the idea was I'd have a card for 2 years, I'd cancel it, my wife would open a card, she'd have it for 2 years. Then when my 2 years without a card was up, I'd open a new card and she'd cancel hers and start her 2 years and keep cycling around that way. So it's a great way to get every couple of years a welcome bonus. It used to be every year, so we used to do that more regularly. Yes, closing a credit card, opening a new credit card, they do have an impact on your credit report. But over a 2 year period, I would not be worried about that. What I would imagine you might want to do in that interim period, those 2 years, is have a credit card from a different brand, potentially the Barclaycard Avios credit card, the free credit card there. Again, you can earn Avios points there, which you can convert into Nexa points if you wish, which means you can still earn, have a cashback credit card, or the Barclaycard Rewards one. It's probably maybe a better pick because it's fee-free overseas. So you've still got a credit card that you can use and have that kind of on your credit report showing that you do have some available credit and you're using some of that. Again, that's a nice signal, a strong signal to the lenders that you are responsible with credit. So that's probably what I would do in that situation. Lucas says, Chase has totally blocked the Circuit Laundry, one of the main UK laundry providers. Okay, that's weird. That's an unusual one. Why are they doing that? It'd be a bit unusual. Rich from Mitch says, hi Andy, I've done all of this year's switches, all the usual suspects. Are there any other banks that haven't done one for 2+ years? Yes. So Metro did a refer a friend switching offer for 50 quid in 2019 or 2021. I can't remember if it was before or after the pandemic. Barclays did a a switching offer. I think the last time that ran was 2019, and you got double Blue Rewards points. They're the ones we haven't seen for a while. Never had anything from Starling, never had anything from Monzo, never anything from Chase, which now they're part of the switching scheme. That could change. You never know. They might introduce something there. Haven't had anything from Nationwide since that finished last year. And Santander did something briefly this year. But yeah, I think the usual suspects, like I say, they're going around again and again and again. The other one, it's impossible to say whether they launch anything again. If they do, I'll obviously let you know here on the channel and on the website. So Ben's got a question about taking money from a student overdraft and put it in a savings account, which I answered earlier, Ben. So hopefully you got my answer to that different question before. Vertices asked about Crew. Again, I've spoken about that one already. Mark says, is Halifax planning on doing a switching deal in the near future? So the Lloyds Bank switching deal is due to finish on the 17th of July, so in a week. And normally they kind of tend to have one ends and another one starts, or there may be a bit of a gap in between. And this is normally, there's no guarantee that would happen. But I would expect that maybe in August time we'd see another Halifax offer, where the last, as I detailed in my last Lloyds Bank and Switch update article and video, then change to that offer, which I imagine will be in the next Halifax switching offer, terms and conditions, is that you will not be able to get the offer from that bank, from Lloyd's Bank, if you've had one from Halifax, and vice versa. So imagine a Halifax one will say if you've had a Lloyd switching offer, you won't be able to get a Halifax one. So that would be the big change there. So that's something to consider. If you're thinking about the Lloyd switch now, maybe you might want to wait for a Halifax one to come along. Again, it's hard to say. Now, whether you can get both, I don't know. The terms say you can't. I'm not seeing many reports. I don't think that people have managed to do that in the same way they may have done the NatWest RBS and Ulster Bank switches. Strawberry Mellow says, what do you think about Revolut Ultra? I can't see any recent videos about business banking options either. So what do you think is the best? So with Revolut, first of all, I'm not a fan of Revolut broadly. I think the app is very confusing. It's trying to do a huge amount of stuff, and most of it, for me personally, isn't relevant. I know some people are a fan of some of those features. It's not for me. Whether it's Revolut Ultra or Monzo Plus or any of these things where you pay extra for some even more features that, again, you probably don't need. So far, there hasn't been one that I've been impressed with or felt has been value for money. You know, when you look at things like travel insurance, the packaged bank accounts from the big banks like Nationwide, they're probably going to be better for you because you're just getting a sort of slightly better account. You're paying for it, but you're getting these insurances. With these other accounts, you're getting metal cards and all this stuff, which, yeah, they're nice, but are they worth paying for when there's all these other things you can spend money on? I don't know. Now, I know Revolut Ultra has some extra features. I haven't looked at it into much detail, and I will do that. But again, I'm generally not a fan of those because I don't feel what they give you is worth paying for. We can live without those things. Very quickly, I just have one question per person on business banking options. My top picks, as long as you don't need cash, are Starling and Monzo. So have a look at them. You do have to be an existing customer with them, and they can be different depending if you're a sole trader or a limited company, but certainly have a look at that. Soralb says, does opening a new current account with new different banks affect your credit score anyway? We're getting a lot of duplicate questions today, which is interesting. So again, I have already answered that one. Check out the podcast today. That will give you information about that. Oh, this is useful. Martin says Tandem will be 4.36% from tomorrow. So they must have just announced that either before going live or during this live. So that's interesting. They go top of the table. Will we see some responses from that? Will we see Chip try to go above that? Will we see Shawbook go above that? Interesting. So thanks for that, Martin. Good to hear. I will update that. I was in the table tomorrow morning. Ollie says, hi, Andy. How high do you see easy access rates going given the base rate predictions are peaking around 6%? So obviously that these predictions on a 6% sort of peak, and in fact, I think the markets are saying it could go even higher than that right now. But that's obviously been priced into a lot of the savings accounts already. Now, the longer term fixes, they are pricing that in, which is why we're seeing those fixes around sort of 6% now for 1 year and 2 years. And they're a bit less for 3 and 4 years because I guess they're thinking, well, maybe it'll drop down after that. With easy access accounts, I mean, yeah, as we've just seen, if Tandem's going up to a little bit tomorrow and someone else wants to go a little bit above that, and then we get another base rate rise and another one, maybe they could get up to 5%. But remember, at the moment, they're still below the rate. So I can't imagine they'll ever get up. Let's say the base rate does hit 6%. Maybe they'll go above 5% if you follow that logic, but there's no guarantee that they will. Obviously, the good thing about easy access accounts, unlike other accounts, is if a better rate comes along, you can always move your money across to one of those different accounts. This is interesting. Malika, going back to what you said earlier on, but First Direct phoned me to check a transaction because they had not heard of Crew. Yeah, that is you're going to find that sometimes the banks, their systems haven't necessarily caught up with some of these newer banks. But a lot of these banks we see on those savings rates, they aren't new. They've been around for a long time. They're just not big ones. You might not have heard of them because you don't offer current accounts or whatever it might be. Hoshcott says, my Experian credit score dropped 102 points randomly last month. I'm pretty regular on my bill payments with no case of account rejections as well. I do not hold any credit card. Is that the reason? So there can be a number of reasons why scores drop, and that is again something for another time. There are articles about how to improve your credit score and what your credit score means, and there are videos as well. So if you want to read it or watch them, beclareyourcash.com or Andy Clever Cash on YouTube, and you'll find the content there with more information. What I would say is, you've looked at the score. Have you looked at the report? Go in there and just check all the information is correct, and just make sure that there's nothing in there that you don't recognize, because it's possible someone has opened up something in your name. This is, why checking your credit report is so important, because it's a good indicator if there's any kind of fraud that's gone on. So have a look at that. Check there's maybe someone you've got a joint account with. Maybe they have dropped you down. If you've been applying for lots of accounts, that can have an impact. So yeah, lots of things could have caused that score to drop down, and often Experian, you can see via Money Saving Experts Credit Club. You can sign up for free and you'll get not just the score, you will see the full report. Likewise, Equifax you can see on ClearScore, and TransUnion you can see on Credit Karma. You can sign up for free to each of those websites and they will give you more information about why your score has fallen at certain points. I don't know if you get it the first time you sign in or whether it's each time they give an indication. So it's well worth doing that if you haven't already, to give you an idea of what actually has changed. In terms of having a credit card, yes, if you have a credit card and you use it responsibly, which means you only spend on it with things that you can afford, that you buy anyway, and then you clear them completely every single month so you don't get charged interest, that can help improve your score, boost it. But I can't imagine not having one would mean it would reduce. It's just a way to improve it if you need that. Okay, where else are we going? Diego says, why was Revolut's banking license rejected? Is it safe to keep money with them? So as to why it's rejected, I can't say, because only really the FCA can kind of really give it a sense of that. It's another reason why I'm not a huge fan of theirs, because there always seems to be sorts of lots of weird stuff going on in the background. Like they don't release their annual reports, and their accountants tend to sort of say that they're not confident with the figures and all these kind of things. But anyway, your money with Revolut is, if the money with Revolut is actually held in a different bank, and most of the time this is the case, then there will be some protections in place. If it is so the linked account. So for example, Chip is a really good example of this. Chip itself is not FCA regulated, but the savings accounts you have with Chip are held with a bank called Clearbank. And Clearbank is properly regulated, and all the money in there is protected by that financial services compensation scheme. So that's absolutely fine, right? Your money is with Clearbank rather than Chip. Revolut, I don't believe, work in the same way. They might have something instead, which is called an e-money wallet. And that has some protections sometimes, but it doesn't work quite in the same way. So let's say that money is held in Barclays underneath it. If Barclays was to go bust, you'd have an issue, but you probably wouldn't happen. You'd probably be fine. But it's not under that financial services compensation scheme protection. So ultimately, there's no point having a lot of money in Revolut anyway, because they don't offer amazing rates of interest. Just have a little bit in there that you're spending money. I wouldn't bother it for now. Obviously, if it gets a banking license and things change, that could be a very different matter. Couple of people talking here about Starling's savings rate. So Sandro says it has a terrible savings rate. So Rob says, do you think the savings rate with Starling will increase? They've offered some fixed accounts, which are rates which were okay, but they're not brilliant. They might do. Monzo has definitely gained a lot of customers because of it started offering competitive savings rates. Not right at the top, but near the top for a while, and not too far off it now. It may be that Starling want to try and do that as well. Mark says, is Virgin Money the best to go to regards ISAs? It depends. Again, I've got a whole the beclevercash.com/savings does list the top ISAs, and I've got a separate article which we update every day as well with even more ISAs to look at. It depends what you want, what you're going for. Virgin has recently tended to be very competitive with ISAs, but we've got a couple. If you talk about fixes, Lloyds and Halifax are about to introduce next week some really, really high fixes. So again, they could be good ones, or another bank might come in. So again, depends what you're after. If you just want the highest rate, then shop around, and at the time you need the account, see what the best ones are. Richard says, I'm on a 40% tax band. Wife is on a 20% tax band. My ISA allowance is used up, and I expect to use my personal savings allowance, but my wife won't. Any issues with giving my wife money to put into her accounts to reduce the tax exposure? No, not at all. Obviously, you can also look at premium bonds. Any prices you get there are tax-free. The price rate from the August draw is 4%. You probably won't get 4%. You probably get less than that. But again, that might still work better. If she's going to go over her PSA, then maybe that's another option for you to consider. Nicholas says, will interest rates in savings accounts go back down when the Bank of England decreases the interest rate? Where did you get your bookshelf? So if and when rates start to fall again, which at some point they hopefully will, it's unlikely they'll go back to where they were before. The expectation right now is that we will see rates probably around that kind of 4%, maybe 3.5% to 4.5%, around that kind of thing ongoing. That would be a new normal, maybe a little bit higher, but certainly not at that where we were when it was below 1% for such a long time. So from that point of view, rates will fall down to reflect that, but they probably won't go down as low as they did when we had 0.1% as the base rate. This bookshelf, I think, is from IKEA. I don't know if you can still get it because I've had it for a while. Demi says to keep your money in Chip right now. Christopher says hello. SRS says hello. Budget Logistics says, any good savings accounts to put £450 a day? Wow. Okay. Well, regular savings accounts are good for people who are paying new money into savings every month because often they are paying higher rates of interest. Again, a whole guide to them on the website and the YouTube channel to explain a bit more how they work because people get a little bit confused often how the interest is calculated. They have limits, often £300 or £400 a month. You're talking about a day, which is a whole another level of things. You're really, for that kind of money, once you've used up your regular savers, you're looking at the best easy access accounts because they're the ones that allow you to keep putting money into them. Cold says, hi Andy, what's the best savings account for a 17-year-old? I have saved over £15,000. Well done. I'm putting £1,500 in every single month, but no banks offer me good interest rate for this. Yeah, you are going to struggle slightly with that because many of the banks will require you to be 18 in order to get those higher paying accounts. There are ones for children and young adults under the age of 18. I haven't looked at that for a couple of weeks in terms of exactly what the best paying ones are. But yeah, it's not going to be fantastic. You might just have to still deal with that as your option, I'm afraid. Of course, if you're 17 now, there's not long to go. So maybe you'll be able to do better after that. Actually, premium bond, thinking about this, premium bonds, I wonder what the minimum age for premium bonds, because it's often a thing that people buy, isn't it, or used to buy for kids when they were born. So maybe have a look at premium bonds. But again, because you're winning prizes, I feel that could be slightly older. I'm not sure about that one. Not sure. But again, have a little dig around and hopefully you'll find something. People might comment below if they've got any suggestions as well. Fifi says, do you know what the best graduate account is for a new graduate? I'm with HSBC and want to convert it to a graduate account. So I haven't looked at the student and graduate accounts for probably a year. I normally look at it in sort of late July, early August, just as people start to get their A-level results. The graduate accounts tend to be ones with your bank. You've had the student account with often the best ones because they tier that overdraft if you've got it and keep it at 0%, albeit at a lower balance for a period. And often that is a kind of progression from your student account. So if you're with HSBC for your student account, there's a graduate account, then the HSBC one is probably your best bet too. If you're thinking about, look, actually, I've graduated, I don't have a 0% overdraft, I just want to get another bank account, then you can obviously look at all the other accounts out there which are available to you with all the different perks. You can get that. Club Lloyds will give you free Disney Plus, Halifax will always give you a free fiver, all those different options. But if you have the overdraft, it's worth sticking with those actual graduate accounts that tend to go with the banks and looking at what the options there. But you're unlikely to be able to transfer an existing overdraft from a student account to an overdraft to a graduate account at a different bank. Don't understand that question. What's our take on Lockbox? You know what? I haven't looked at it too much, but Lockbox is one where I think you're paying, aren't you, to boost your credit report. Again, if you really struggle to get any other options to let you do this, then I would maybe do some research and see what you think. I haven't done that in detail. Just to check you guys on Insta. Nashes, how accurate are the AmEx eligibility checkers? Would you say 7.5 out of 10 is worth the plunge for applying? It's really impossible to say. I mean, they are only operating off the information that you've given them there and looking at maybe a soft check on your credit report as well. So if they're saying 7.5 out of 10, that's a really good indication you'll get it, but it's not 10 out of 10. It's not pre-approved. So there is a chance you will get rejected. I think ultimately when you've got to consider any card you're applying for, which has a kind of chance of rejection, why are you doing it? And is there anything else coming along which might be more important? So if you're remortgaging or maybe a 0% balance transfer credit card, which are much more important than say a cashback card, then maybe go, do you know what, I'm just going to focus on those. And in fact, for mortgage applications, you want to be clear of any credit applications 6 months before, ideally. But 7.5 out of 10, if there's nothing else that's going on, it's not a bad shout. Give it a go. If you don't get it, well, you just wait a little while before you apply for something else and maybe have a look at the things you can do in your credit report to boost them a little bit more. Right, we're nearly out of time, guys. Oh, loads of questions still to go here. So what, do another 5 minutes today? Just because you're all so nice. Where was I? Jim says, my wife has a First Direct current account. I heard recently they will not be charging non-sterling transaction fees on debit cards when using abroad. Does this apply to existing cards? Yes, it does. So you won't get charged for using your First Direct card abroad. Ria says, I'm looking to open a cash lifetime ISA for purchasing a house in the future. I'm not sure who has the best rates to go to. any ideas. Yep, so becleveryourcash.com/savings. Right at the bottom of that one, I've got the top paying lifetime ISAs, cash lifetime ISAs in there amongst all the other ones as well. Sean says, I just signed up for a fixed cash ISA earlier this year. The rate has gone up since. Is it possible to update that ISA to renew the interest rates, or am I stuck at the lower rates until maturity? So unlike fixed accounts that are not ISAs, you can actually take your money out of an ISA early in a fix. However, you'll pay an interest penalty, and the size of that penalty is often in days. And how many days that's going to be will often be dependent on the provider, but also how long you fixed for. So if you've only fixed for a year, then maybe it'll be, 35 or 40 days of interest you'll lose. If it's 2 years, maybe it'll go up to 90 days, 100 days. If it's 3 years, maybe it's 120, 160 days, whatever it might be. So what you need to do is you need to calculate how much interest will I pay as a penalty, and that's on your balance, not how much you've earned. Is a penalty on kind of for the whole year, what you would have earned on that balance. Minus that out, and then add it on to factor at this new rate, what you'd get for the rest of the time. Now, depending on what the rate was when you fixed and what that penalty is, will really depend on what that difference is. But it's certainly worth a look with cash ISAs. What should we do? Let's just do a quickly look over here again. Check your Insta. Again, sorry guys, we're trying to do one question per person. Harsh says, hey, is Curve Metal worth it for the insurance and the credit card fronted payment? Similar to what we were talking there with Revolut earlier on, I don't think it is. I think you're probably better off just shopping around and getting a travel insurance policy and other insurance policies that you actually need that do what you need them to do. Because these package ones often they have restrictions, they might have limitations, they might not be as good as you want. And the fronted payment with Curve, for those who don't know, this is basically the ability for you to use it where there's normally a charge for using your credit card. So you kind of might be able to get points on something. Again, broadly, I don't think it's worth it unless you are doing this a huge amount. And I can't recall now, but there may well be restrictions with Curve Metal. So broadly, I'm not a fan of those schemes, including the Curve Metal one. But again, do your maths, have a look, see if it will work for you. Because if one situation is obviously different. I Am Digital has asked about multiple bank switches and your credit score. Again, check out today's episode of Cash Chats, episode 327. I think it is going to talk explicitly about that. Mark says, do you have any idea why Tandem isn't a verified account by banks when transferring money once money was returned? Okay, interesting one. Don't know. I've had no problem transferring money to and from Tandem, but obviously that's the situation you've had. It could be that certain banks just haven't got their systems, aren't kind of caught up for that. Esme says she's waiting for the Chase Bank switch reward in order to make it worthwhile moving away from Amex. Yeah, whether they'll do it, I don't know. We'll wait and see. Right, guys, I think I'll probably have to call it a day there. Apologies to those of you whose questions I didn't get around to. Remember, the Facebook group, becleverwithyourcash.com/community. Go over there, search to see if someone has already asked the question, because that's one of the problems we sometimes get is the same question asked again and again and again, so I have to reject those. But have a search, see if anyone's asked it. If they haven't, ask it there. And if I can't help you, if I don't have time to do it, then 5,500 people in there, lots of people there will be able to give you their input. Plus, obviously, over on the website, becleveryourcash.com, there is a huge amount of information, articles that I've written and the videos that I've produced and all of that, which hopefully will be able to help you. That's it for this time. I will be back a couple of weeks' time, I imagine, with another one of these. If you want to find out when it is before everybody else, make sure you get that newsletter, becleverwithyourcash.com/newsletter, because that is when I tell you exactly when it's going to be. And you can put a little note in your diary so you don't miss out. Thank you so much, guys. Have an absolutely lovely rest of the week, and I'll see you then. Cheers.